Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dropping Down from the Rafters podcast here on Toned In Entertainment. Today, again, I'm always excited, but I'm always especially excited when Julie Cutler comes on to co-host with me. Welcome, Julie.
I'm back. And Tony, guess what?
What
I
you got?
didn't come alone. I brought with us today a very special guest, a friend of mine, and somebody who has been a staple in the independent New England wrestling scene for years now. And if I may, she is the current WFA Women's Champion, Luscious Latasha.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me. Julie, I love it every time you announce me. I do.
I love it too. Thank you so much for being here. I'm particularly excited because obviously we've worked together for a while now, but I was realizing as I was preparing for this interview, there's actually a lot of questions about like your background and your training and all of the years prior before I had met you. That I still have so many questions to ask you about your career. There's so many things that I just haven't had the opportunity to ask you yet, just in the, many times that we've been working together and we've had conversations about things. So I'm really excited to actually get the chance to dive into some of that today. So Tony, I'm going to hand it over to you because I know you were particularly excited about having Tasha on today. So where do we begin?
Well, yeah. Well, let's go with the WFA because, when I was talking to Julie, we have a list of guests that we go over and we talk about. And I'm like, first of all, Julie and I have never had a lady guest on here to begin with. It's all been guys. And I was like, well, first we need to get a woman guest on here. And why not bring on the champion as well, too, Luscious Latasha? And she said, yes, Luscious is a lot of fun. She's going to be just bubbly and a good time. So she already put you over. And I said, okay, let's do this thing. So let's go into a little bit about, your reign as the WFA Women's Champion and what that means to you.
So WFA, when I first started wrestling, WFA, I grew up in Massachusetts. So WFA was in New Hampshire and I started really early and I didn't have my license right away. So it was always a place I wanted to work for. And then unfortunately, they ended up closing their doors by the time I got my license and everything. And so when they reopened, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And I was able to do a couple shows before I actually was able to capture the Women's Championship. So since then, it's been a wild ride. It's been fun. I feel like our market is really growing. I love the fact that we are able to put on such good women matches. I am a big, firm believer that we can do just as well as the men and that we deserve to be in the spotlight. So with WFA, they give us that opportunity. They really try to bring in like the best girls that we can possibly work with, which is helpful for me from being in the area for so long. I do get to work with a lot of younger talent too, which pushes me because things are different from when I started. Like if you watch the Diva era, like that was easier. We have to really work now. And like my body sometimes doesn't want to participate, but I mean, I don't change it for the world. So I'm very grateful that I've been able to successfully hold the WFA Women's Championship and to represent them and going forward and growing that market again.
So Toya, one thing that I wanted to circle back to, one thing that I had mentioned in your intro is that you've wrestled for a lot of different promotions in Massachusetts and just in New England in general. And you've really been like a staple of the women's division in New England for a number of years now. And I've actually never personally asked you where you started, who you started training with, because I know that you started at a relatively young age. So can you tell us a little bit about like your backstory, how you got into wrestling in the first place, and then where you kind of grew from there?
Yeah, so I started watching wrestling at like 4 years old with my grandmother, and it was always... I'm so sorry.
We got cats in the background, but it's all good.
We love cats here. We love cats.
We do love cats. We do. We're all cat fans. It's all good.
She's very talkative. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so I started watching wrestling with my grandmother at a very young age. And it's crazy how it started. So I went to my first wrestling show. It was King of the Ring. I was 7 years old. And I said to my grandmother, my Nana, she's the one who raised me. And I said, Nana, I want to be a wrestler. And most kids that age like want to be crazy things, right? And you're just like, yeah, sure, you'll be whatever you want when you grow up. So with that being said, she was like, okay, fine. Like, if that's really what you want to do, then when you get older, that's something we can look into. So, Alicia Edwards, if you guys are familiar with her, every time I have to do an interview, I always have to bring her up because
yes, she's a current champion in TNA right now. So I was so excited about that.
Yes, her first championship. So I'm extremely excited for her. But so Alicia and we went to elementary school together, and I was the one who originally got her into wrestling. And come to find out, so this is where the story ties in, is her mother used to work with a wrestling promoter, and she didn't know she knew he did some other shows, but at the time he had a flea market, so she would work at the flea market. And then Alicia came over to my house one day, and I was like, listen, we have to stay up till like 2 a.m. and we have to watch wrestling. And she's like, what is wrestling? So fast forward, we were watching it. She ends up liking it. We go to her mom's house because we go back and forth. We lived behind each other, so we would literally just hop fences when we wanted to go over each other's houses. Yeah. So her mom was watching wrestling with us, and she's like, wait a minute, I think the guy I work for owns a wrestling company. Come to find out, it's literally right up the street from where we live. So there was independent wrestling for years at this point, right up the street from our house. So we started going to shows. You had to be 16 to start training. So my grandmother had to sign a waiver for me to start training when I was 16. And I actually got to manage on my 16th birthday, which was the best thing ever. I started it used to be called Yankee Pro Wrestling and South Coast Championship Wrestling. When Joe sold it to Steve Ricard, who's now the current owner still, it became Top Rope Promotions. And yeah, I used to literally train right up the street. So I've been doing this for quite some time. I got thrown in my first match very soon. I don't think footage of it is online, thank goodness. But
no, we need the footage. We want the footage.
Don't roll the tape.
Roll the tape. Hold on, we've got it right now.
I'd be like, hi.
Shortest interview ever.
Yeah. So I had my first match in February of 2004, and my grandmother, at the time, she was diagnosed with cancer, and it was the only time she ever actually got to see me wrestle. So it's like the best. Like, I couldn't ask for a better thing for me. Like, my friend Lindsay, because she was on oxygen and everything, and my friend Lindsay had to like help walk my grandmother to the show, like into the building. And then I remember like jumping out, like, I don't know why I made an entrance like this, but I like jumped out the curtain, like, hey, and then I jumped out. Apparently she was at the guardrail, and I jumped past her because at the time I thought she would be sitting down because she couldn't really stand. And then I remember going to like the top roof and like standing up, and I looked and I saw her, and she's like jumping up and down. And I'm looking at my friend, and I'm like, hold her, she's gonna fall. Like, fall on concrete, like, please. But yeah, it was great. And for the first few years, it was me and Alicia literally just wrestling each other all over New England for a while.
I saw you guys actually, was it recently that you wrestled each other again? Or I saw that there was a graphic for a match between the two of you not that long ago.
Yeah, it was last Sunday. Yeah.
And which promotion was that with?
LPW. So at Lucky Pro Wrestling, I am the current women's champion, and she is the current Stardom champion. And how that championship works is pretty much like Money in the Bank briefcase. So like you cash. So I won that first, and then I cashed it in, and then I won the women's championship. And then that same night they had a match. It was Gia Miller and Jamie Senegal. Gia Miller versus Jamie versus Alicia. Alicia won the Stardom championship. Then this match that we just had, she was she was cashing in for my championship, and then it ended in a DQ because she's crazy.
Okay, so the cool thing about this is, number one, you guys have a very thick personal history together. Number two, you have a very thick history in the business together, and particularly in LPW. And number three, the story is not over yet.
No,
so,
it's never over.
So you guys still need to finish the story.
Yes.
I feel like stories are never over in professional wrestling, though.
That's
Even when
so
they say
true.
finish the story, they're never over.
No, it's
That's
another
so
book,
true.
another book. Chapter.
Another book.
Keep flipping.
I want to get to two comments real quick, Julie. A friend of the channel, somebody who we've had here on the channel, Miss Layla James, says, Latasha, Miss Layla James is in the house. Welcome, Layla. And Cherry Bombs does have a question. She says, I love the name Luscious. How did you get that name? Uh-oh. It's always a good answer when the face gets covered.
Okay, so like I said, I've been a wrestling fan for years, and I always wanted to wrestle. So I don't remember a lot of things like point blank, but certain things absolutely. So I remember like watching wrestling, and people have like all these like cool little monikers and whatever, right? So I was like, I need something cool, and so I'm looking in the dictionary, and I'm just flipping through words, and then I see luscious, and I was like, ooh, luscious. I'm not luscious though. And I'm like, but I can be luscious. Should I do it? And I asked my grandmother, and I was like, Nana, do you guys can wrestle with the name Luscious, like Luscious something, right? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, Luscious something. So then there was like a newspaper, and they had cars. So there was like a Mercedes, which already there was a Mercedes Martinez. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, well, obviously I can't use that. And then I saw Lexus. So my name when I was 12 was when I started, I wanted to be Luscious Lexus. And so with how my birthday falls and how Alicia's birthday falls, oh God, she's gonna kill me. But so she got to manage before me because she's 6 months older than me. So, or 9 months older than me, sorry. So when she needed a name, and then we were coming up with all these names, and she got to do a show, and she comes back and says, guess what my name is? Guess what my name is? I said, what? She said, Lexus. I said, what? We're training at the same place. She's like, yeah, but it's with 3 X's.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so you have 3 X's, I have 1. No, that's not gonna work. So she ended up getting in trouble throughout the years for using that name. Yeah, so that's when she ended up using. I went to Alexis, and then when she signed with Impact many years ago, they just did Alicia. So then when I had to wrestle, I was still like Luscious something, and then I got told 2 days before our show that I was going to wrestle. And I was like, let's just use Luscious Latasha for now. That's fine. And
that's fine. And then it just stuck.
Yeah, because they had me in like newspapers and stuff, and I was like, this is before like the internet was really cool. We still had like AOL dial-up. So
oh yeah, I
your
little like messages.
So I'm like,
your
okay,
song
cool.
lyrics.
And Latasha was the name that my mom actually wanted to name me. So my grandmother was not on the fence for that, but my mom was in the picture still, so she's like, I want it Latasha. And my grandmother was like, no.
Well, the thing that I love about that name, number one, I love the alliteration. I always love like good alliterative names like that with the double L's. Mm-hmm. And then I also like that it's not too far off from your actual name.
Right. And it's weird because I actually hate my real name with passion. As you know, I'm like, if you know me, you know what I'm doing. But with Latasha, I love it. But when some people are like, what should I call you? I'm always like, Luscious. I feel like it's just like luscious.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna chant, I don't want to hear Latasha. I want luscious. Like, I don't know. It just, to me, it sounds
it flows off the tongue nicely.
Yeah, it's catchy. It's definitely catchy.
One other thing that I wanted to ask while we were talking about your name and your early training days and all of that, I know you mentioned like people using different names at different points in time, and especially because you started at a really young age. How did you sort of figure out over the years, like what you wanted your character to be like and what you wanted to do in your entrance and things like that? Because I know you mentioned like in your early entrance, you just come out and you're like, I'm here. So how did you sort of like find your character as you developed yourself?
So I feel like I'm still finding my character. Not gonna lie. I think I kind of have it, but honestly, because times have changed so much, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh, what's your character? Or who are you?" And I'm always just like, "Oh, well, I'm the underdog, and I'm very dancey." So with me, I grew up. My dad's side of the family, or my stepdad's side of the family, is Puerto Rican, and they always, when I would go over there, we would listen to Latin music, and I always would want to dance, and that was just everything I really liked. So then as I got older, I realized like, hey, I can like go online and try to find Latin music. This is like when LimeWire was like popular, and I'm like downloading stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I love Elvis Crespo, so I would always dance. And then as I started going into the gym, I realized that there was Zumba fitness. And I used to take Zumba classes all the time. And then the instructors would be like, hey, you really should teach. Like, I don't know, like, why you don't. And I'm just like, oh, I just really like taking classes. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I could. And then because I would know their choreography, I would start doing their songs. Like, they'd call me up and I would do a couple songs. And then I'm like, one of my good friends, I asked her, I'm like, hey, we should go get certified. So we went and we got Zumba certified. I've been Zumba certified for 12 years now. So dance fitness is really a part of me. And I think with promoters, when they see that and they see I'm so happy-go-lucky and smiley and always in a good mood, they always want me to present that as like, hey, this is your character. And the one thing I think, because I literally had this thought the other day, when you watch some women, and usually it seems like they come out and they're very dancy and happy-go-lucky, and I just don't want to fall into that category of she's just like them. But I have been doing this for so long, so it's like, where's the in between? But like, this is who I am. I mean, obviously I can switch it up, and there's many times where I'm heel and obviously I don't come out dancing and I'm really cocky and luscious, but that's mainly where I got it from.
Okay, well, we lost Julie for a second. She messaged me that she was having a problem with her power supply, but she'll be right back. So, okay, let's talk about the Zumba, because I've seen you do some of the videos. I've seen them online. So if I was to attend one of your Zumba classes, I think I have to rest up for like a week. But what can I expect as maybe a newcomer coming in? And hold on, we got Julie back. All right,
Apologies, you
Julie
guys.
is back.
I had some technical difficulties over here with my my power supply, but we are back up and running.
I was like, oh, am I boring you, Julie?
Julie messaged me. She's like, I'm leaving right now. You got this.
We're back. We're back. Technical difficulties have been fixed. Prices averted. Prices averted.
So I just Latasha was talking about her Zumba, and I just kind of asked her if I, as a newcomer, was to come and try out one of her Zumba classes, what would I be in store for?
Sweating a lot.
I could see that. I feel like you would teach an intense Zumba class.
Yeah.
Just based on your entrance alone, I have had the pleasure, because I'm the ring announcer for WFA, I have had the pleasure of getting to dance with Luscious during her entrance, which is a lot of fun. And she has so much energy in just that like minute and a half when she's coming to the ring that I'm like, I can only imagine what this Zumba class would be like.
Yeah. So to be honest, I amaze myself every time I teach, because I'm like, man, this is rough, huh? I am dying on the stage. Like, It is not, and I always try to tell people, like, they're like, oh, it's a dance class. Like, yes, it's a dance class, but like, if you cannot dance, to simplify it, Tony, for you is like, you know how to count, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least
So,
a
like,
3. 1,
yeah.
2,
That's a
3.
good start.
Good start. Keep going. But yeah. So with that being said, music, no matter what language it is or what the beats per minute, everything is going to, we say a 32 count. If you break it down, obviously it's an 8 count. So whatever we do to one side, we do to the other side. So like if I'm going to go 2 to the right, I'm going to go 2 to the left. I'm not going to go 2 to the right and then just like 5. Like I'm not going to, everything's even.
You're not gonna mix it up.
Yeah, no.
Try to catch people.
We might do a single double, but then we're gonna go single double like on the other. So it all equals out, and that equals 4, obviously. Which do that again, that equals 8. So anywho, so yeah, it's a really good class. I try to mix in a lot of different genres. So my favorite is merengue music. I wish I could dance to merengue all day. I'd probably be doing CPR on some of the students if I did merengue, because the beats per minute are so fast. So it's just like,
it is really fast.
It is so fast. And then I'll incorporate salsa. I'll incorporate bachata. We do hip hop because I also teach senior Zumba as well.
That's going to be fun.
Yes, they're super cute. They're so cute, and they keep up with it. So my normal class, I have to judge your audience. It's the same thing with wrestling. You have to realize who you're performing for, because like you can go out there and be a spot monkey, and nobody's gonna care, right? Like at a show, like they want you to interact with you. So like being at WFA or being at Lucky Pro, the fans want you to acknowledge that they're there. Like you're working for them, you're not working for yourself. And a lot of people don't realize that. So even in Zumba world, yeah, just because I want to dance merengue doesn't mean everybody else wants to dance merengue. So we have to incorporate different things. So with my specific class, they like reggaeton and they like hip hop. So I will throw in a hip hop song. Right now we're doing Cardi B, Enough, which is a slower song, but like we literally like pump. I'm like thrust and pump, like put your muscles out there. And thinking of the dance move, you'd be like, oh, that's easy. But like when you're actually using your core and pumping down and hitting, like, oof, it's a workout.
I might have to retract one of my statements, Latasha, because you said, can I count? Yes, I can count to 3, but when it comes to dancing, I can't count for nothing. So I'm in a lot of trouble. You got me. Okay.
I promise. And I always say to everybody, because when COVID things were shut down, I was teaching Zumba online. And I'm always like, if you just move, even if it's not my class, the steps are going to be similar. With a salsa is just salsa. We may change the foot direction and everything like that. But at the end of the day, if you go to somebody else's class, it's going to be the same. Like, you're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, right foot forward, left foot back. Like, okay, the side step. Like, but you'll hear the beat and you hear the change. And if you don't, you eventually will get there. And as long as you have a good instructor, they can cue to get you to the next step of where we're going before we're right then and there. So.
And one thing that I wanted to ask about, and this is shifting subjects just a little bit, because I've seen you post a lot about you're teaching your Zumba classes. You're usually teaching out of a gym. And you mentioned a lot about like using your core and like different muscle groups and things like that. And one thing that I wanted to circle back to is that you had actually also done bodybuilding at one point in time in your life, a number of years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about like how you got into that and sort of like how that tied into your wrestling journey? Because I know that there are like a number of people in wrestling, a couple of people that I've seen signed to major promotions that either came from the bodybuilding world or decided at some point that they wanted to do a show or a couple of shows here and there. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey in that world as well.
Okay, so I really my desire was to be in WWE. 100% being honest. It was to be in WWE. So when I seen divas getting signed who were fitness models, And being on the indies at this point, I think I was maybe 5, 7 years in maybe, and my phone still wasn't ringing. And I'm like, I gotta add something to the resume. I have to do something, because if my indie work isn't getting me where I need to be, I need to change. So, if people don't know, I work out. So if you see how my Zumba class is, you'd be like, man, how does she not have abs? Because I love cake.
Don't we all though? And you can't deprive yourself. That's the thing, is with bodybuilding, you have to really deplete your body of a lot of calories as you get closer and closer to competition. And it's hard to live long term like that. It's hard to deprive yourself of those things for a long period of time.
Especially when you're so used to a lifestyle, and it's more of like a mindset and willpower. And I have that because I was able to do it. It's not something, and this sounds so terrible to say, but it's being 100% honest. That's not something I want to maintain. But in the recent month, I have been more intuitive onto what I'm actually putting in my mouth. And I already am seeing a difference. Like, just from my blush gear that you love, Julie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the blush pink gear. Ugh, love it.
So
That's
I actually, I'm gonna go back to the bodybuilding thing in like legit 1 second. But so no I watched the match with Elle. I put it on YouTube because, you know, it's the private link or whatever, and I put it on my television to see how much my gear sparkled and everything, make sure it looked good on actual TV, even though I don't think people watch it on the television, but whatever, I want to see what it looked like. So I was like, man, my gear looks great. It's sparkling. And then I saw what I looked like, and I was like, I see what I look like every day, right? But when you're in gear, it is a different mindset. And then I feel like every wrestler feels this way. We all have like body issues because you're in the spotlight and people are very rude online. Granted, my fan base has not been really ridiculous to me, and I'm very grateful for that. But if I wrestled on television, it would be a totally different story. It's open up, you know what I mean? Everybody's keyboard warriors. So when I saw that, I was like, I love this gear. I don't like how I look in it. And then I was like, you know what? Okay, we're going to go back to, I know what to do. I know that I need to prep my meals. And I really started doing that again. And just not eating cake in the morning, or being like, oh, I taught 2 Zumba classes today and I took a HIIT class. I need Dunkin' Donuts. No, you don't. No, you need chicken and some greens is what you need. You don't need a bagel and a donut. Like, so in my mind, because I did compete and I had to eat 5 meals a day, it is very expensive to do that, and very time consuming, and a lot of dedication has to go into that. And I am slowly incorporating that back into my life, and it's been good. But when I competed, and I did not deserve to be on that stage, because I competed at the Cutler Classic for NPC, and those girls are jacked, and they're jacked. Yes, they work very hard, but they're jacked like that for a reason. Even though I competed for bikini is not like soft. It is very hard. So when me and my old tag partner Gabby were in the locker room, we were like, man, we should have did some stuff so that our physiques will look better. The physique I had, I would wish to have that today, but that is not contest show worthy. But because I was able to add that to my resume, and I had a coach, I had fun on stage with posing. If you see my pictures I take for promos, those poses I got from my posing coach. Like, I always do this. Like, always like
stage posing.
Yes. And I always like turn back, and like, it's what we did. And now it's just incorporated with what I do. But I love following the fitness girls. I just don't think I could do it. But obviously I don't have a contract, so me adding it to my resume didn't really do anything. But what it did in hindsight was let me know what I can do if I really put my mind to it, and know how to eat. Because yes, you do cut your carbs and you do cut your fats, and it's not a healthy way to maintain, but I know what to look for. And reading the labels, like a lot of people, even in the beginning of wrestling, you're always like, oh, I have to cut calories. And it's like, no, you don't. It's your macronutrients. And people are like, what are macronutrients? And it's like your carbs, your fat, and your protein. And a lot of people just look at the number that says calories and they don't look at the other stuff, or they don't look at the dietary fat fiber. And those are important. And now I know that, so I can use that in everyday life. It's just actually using it and not just being like, I had a stressful day today. I need a piece of cake.
Well, I think you brought up a lot of really good points in that, competing, obviously, doing like stage competition for fitness, it's a very, very specific lifestyle, and it's very hard to maintain long term. And as you mentioned, over the years, it's gotten more and more saturated. There's some federations that do test for performance enhancing drugs. There's some that do not. And so it's gotten very saturated with that. And so even if you are going to the gym, every single day, if you're following a certain diet, it's really hard to keep up. And I think that, at least from a wrestling standpoint, the good thing is, like you mentioned, you understand macronutrients, you understand, getting enough protein and eating enough calories in order to really build muscle, which is something that is very important in wrestling, especially when you're taking all those bumps. So kind of jumping off of that, another thing that I wanted to bring up was, kind of circling back to some of your career highlights. I know also I had seen that you had gotten in the ring at one point when you were on WWE television with Bianca Belair. So I'd love to hear more about kind of the innards of that experience. So
we got a fourth member of on the show right now.
That's I saw it incoming and I was like, oh gosh, that's Scout. Scout, say hi. Please don't knock down the light. Oh,
that just made the entire show for me.
Yeah.
I gotta cry. So yes, it did get to work Bianca, and so I'm a big storyteller, and I don't know how to I'm so sorry, I talk a lot. So
that's what the podcast is for. We don't. We don't. This. I'm not going to be Tony Schiavone and say we're out of time. So we're good to
go. I'm always like, I have to give the story though. You have to get the whole thing,
the full picture.
So, yeah. So going back to my name, Luscious. I always was my first T-shirt had lips on it and everything, and I'm like, oh, maybe my move. Julie, I think you maybe actually asked this. My signature move with the kick is Kiss of Luscious or whatever. So I always wanted lips. So lips are on my T-shirt. And then I had one outfit that was black sequin romper. It was my first whole one piece, and I loved it. I was like, man, I actually felt confident in it. It was one of my favorite outfits. And so then this girl comes up. And I didn't watch NXT really, but so I'm on Instagram and Gabby says, "Hey, look at this girl. She has the same outfit as you." And I look, and I said, "Oh, who's this girl? Bianca?" Okay, and I'm like, "Well, this isn't gonna work. We kind of, not to play a card, but we kind of look similar. I can't sit here and dress like her on the Indies if she's gonna be on TV soon, because she was just doing live events." And I was like, what are the odds that she has this, but she had lips on her gear? And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, okay, I can't do the lips anymore. Can't wear this outfit and I can't do the lips anymore. So fast forward to, I do extra work, and I believe in manifestation. Julie and I have talked about this and stuff, but I believe if you really want to do something, you can accomplish it. You just really have to put positive energy out there. I'm a big believer on that. A lot of people say oh, this is a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. I really don't. And to each their own. I don't sit here and ever try to convince someone to believe what I think. It's you believe what you want, and that's fine. But so with that being said, leading into that, I put a vision board on my phone, and I had the WWE. So when they used to be at Full Sail, I had a picture of from the corner of Full Sail of an angle of being in the ring and seeing like the turnbuckle with the NXT logo. Okay, so it wasn't like I was in the crowd or something. I was like, it was a shot from somebody like inside the ring. And that was on there. And then I had like fitness, and then I had like money, because of course, who doesn't want more money?
Amen.
Yeah. So I had that on my phone as my lock screen for probably about a month. And every time, I'm always on my phone, so I'd always see it or whatever. And then I just like, I'll wrestle one day. I'll wrestle in the NXT ring. And so they were like doing Full Sail Over. Me and Gabby, we got called to do extra work. I literally just said this story yesterday too. We got called to do extra work, and we walked in. It was in Georgia, and she walked in first. They said hello. I walked in, said hello. They're like, oh, here's paper. They're like, oh, you're probably having a match today. And I was like, okay. Like, okay. In my head, I was like, yeah, I knew that. And the funny thing is, my ex actually went with me to the show, who was a really big wrestling fan. And he normally, like, it was just weird how it all worked out. Okay. Because, like, I ended up getting to wrestle, and he ended up being there. So it was like a really cool moment for him. He knows everything about everything. He's probably watching NXT right now. I would have told him to watch this, but NXT first. So he actually did watch when I won the title. Like, I think that was a night, I think SmackDown might have been on or something, but he did watch when we were streaming live. And I was like, oh, well, thank you.
That makes sense, because I think that would have been on a Friday show.
Yeah, in Concord. Yep.
Okay.
So we're friends and stuff. But anyway, so fast forward. So Gabby heard it, and she's like, did they just say you're going to wrestle? And I said, yeah. And I'm like, fill out the paper. And she's like, I wonder who you're going to work. So before I could say anything, I said to her, man, I really hope I don't wrestle that new girl that has lips on her gear. And swear to God, said it. And then in my bag, I had my Luscious outfit, which was purple. It says Luscious on the butt. And on the top, it had lips here. And my other outfit, because I never took it out, was my black sequin gear. And I was like, and at this point, this was a few months after the competition. So I was already back to eating normal. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a little screwed. And I'm like, Gabby, what do you have? And then Lacey Evans at the time, she was in the back, and she heard me and Gabby going back and forth, because I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to wear. She's like, you can wear this crop top. And I was like, I looked at Gabby like, crop top? I can't wrestle. If I go up there in a crop top, they're never going to use me again. Like, I am not no. No. So what we did is I put a crop top over my gear to cover my lips. And then I found the paper, and they said I was wrestling Bianca. And I was like, I'm so glad I covered my lips, because I wasn't going to go on television to wrestle somebody else so they have a signed person that at that time they were pushing her. You know what I mean? And honestly, she's one of the nicest people. I've done a lot of extra work throughout the years. Like when like Adam Rose was doing his thing with the Rosebuds, and then like before the show we used to have like extra matches. So like I did a lot of extra work. So when you are able to do that, you get familiar with the talent, and they used to seeing you. So living in New England is actually one of the best areas, because they come here so often. And in about 3 months or so, you can probably do at least 2 extra spots if possible. Things have changed now since COVID and everything. I don't think the matches happen as often or ever nowadays. But that used to be a thing before SmackDown, before Raw, whatever. They'd throw you that. Some people would get signed eventually or get thrown a match on television and then consecutively go that way. Back in the day, you used to be told you don't want to do extra work, because all they're going to do is look at you as an extra. I'm at the point where I'd rather just be seen, because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So yes, I got to work Bianca. It was great. I loved it. I ended up seeing her at an independent show, because Montez Ford and his tag partner ended up doing an Evolve show in New York. And we had a Shine show right before that. So she ended up showing up later with him. And she came up to me and was like, hey, girl, good to see you. And I'm just like, this is like talent. Do you know what I mean? Because at this point now, I think at this point she was on the main roster. And like she remembered me and wasn't like some people have this stigma of just because they're on TV, they're like a different person now. And like, no, that's not everybody's like that. And I was grateful enough for any experiences that I have had that people remember me, or like producers or agents like joke with me when I have been an extra because they see me so often, and that it like a lot of people are in their shell and they just freeze up and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't talk to nobody, I can't say hi to anybody. And it's like, no, if you want to work here, you have to be comfortable. You're not going to go out of your way and go up to Hunter or anything, which I will talk about that in a second too. But but like you hold your composure and you want to look like you fit in. Like you want to work here. You're not going to stand in a corner. And I don't like to do things by myself. Over the years, I have grown to be comfortable with that. But like I am one that's like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and not talk to anybody. But because I've had friends that I worked with on the indies who got signed, it made it easier. And they'd be at catering and they'd come sit with you. And then other people would come up to them. So it just makes it easier. So to go back to Bianca incident and Hunter, growing up, he was my person. Like I used to have pictures of him on my wall and everything. Like I used to have all the magazines.
That was Chris Jericho for me.
He was on my wall too. Yep, and Jeff Hardy and Edge. Yes. So, but Hunter was my number one, and Shawn Michaels at one point. Shawn Michaels first was my number one, and then it went to Hunter. So as fans don't realize, when you get into the business, it does change you, and it's not the same as you think it was. So like Luscious 20 plus years ago, before I wrestled Bianca, would have been having a fit because I saw Shawn Michaels. I shook his hand, but I was just like, hi, nice to meet you. Like, no phase. I got done with my match with Bianca, and Sarah Del Rey was like, Hunter wants to see you. And now I wanted to like lose my heart dropped. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? So I go and he's on the headset and he just says, good job. And I was like, that's all I ever wanted. Like, that was like, thank you. Like, and then I was like, okay, like, I'm good. But like to finish up the story, it was great. I seen her 3 years ago, I think. Maybe two to 3 years ago, I did an extra spot. She was there working Asuka that night, and we walked past each other. She said hello, and she's like, "Do you know, like, when I have to talk about anything?" She's like, "I talk about our match because I guess what we did in that match really helped her elevate." And she says I was one of her favorite enhancement matches, and I was like, "Girl, shut up!" And she's like, "I swear to God," and I was like, "That really means a lot, you know." And when we were talking beforehand, she's like, so how long have you been wrestling? And I was like lacing my boots, and I was like, yeah, a while. Because at this point, I think I was like 15 years in. And I'm not going to go tell her who's like brand spanking new, you know? And then she's like, girl, I want you to do more. And I'm like, listen, I know what my job here is. And I thank you, but I know what my job here is, you know? So, but it was a great experience.
I think it's crazy that some people think that taking enhancement jobs or second jobs is kind of not a smart thing when we've seen so many, especially with the launch of AEW, a lot of people now get signed from those AEW dark performances and stuff like that. And even somebody who we're going to have on in 2 weeks, Jared Diaz, who I talked to a couple of years ago on the podcast, I asked him about being an enhancement talent. He's like, I know my role and I know what I need to do for these shows. So I give you a lot of credit for not listening to some of the voices and going with your instincts and putting yourself out there. Because if you don't put yourself out there, first and foremost, nothing's going to happen. So I just want to give you a lot of props for going for it and putting yourself out there and maybe not listen. To me, that's bad advice from what you heard, but I think you did the right thing.
Yes, it is. It's so the way. Oh, go ahead, Julie.
That's okay. I was just going to kind of add to what Tony was saying in that I think a lot of people get worried that they're going to be sort of like pigeonholed. If they do the extra work, they're going to be sort of pigeonholed into that role. But if you see a lot of the people that are on the main roster now, like you see LA Knight or Damian Priest, a lot of these people, you can go back online and find all of the pictures where they were a security guard or whatever they were doing. I mean,
MJF. I mean, come on now, right? Yeah.
A lot of these people have done that, and maybe they went and they worked somewhere else for a while. Some of these people might have worked in TNA or Ring of Honor. They might have gone other places before coming to WWE kind of came to fruition. But I think a lot of people get worried about being pigeonholed, and I think that the moral of the story is if you do the work, you always have that potential of getting to where you want to be.
Absolutely. And I'm a firm believer as being in their face, you just don't know what opportunity you can get at that time that might lead into something else. Like, I understood it on both sides where it's like, yeah, you might be in their phone as like, oh, I know who to go to for enhancement talent. That's your list. So that's all they're going to use you for. So they're not going to call you in to have a tryout because like they already seen kind of what you can do. And at that time, maybe it didn't catch their eye. So they're looking at the hot next thing and then you get overlooked. Or you might, again, make friends in the business where you're doing an extra spot and they have the guys. There's always going to be more guys than females at these. And with the guys, they'll be like, okay, there's 6 of them. Sometimes if talent knows, I know this guy from the indies, he definitely can take this bump. Well, guess what? You take that bump, maybe the next time they're in town because your face was shown, you might not be there. But that doesn't mean everybody's always watching. And I'm a big person on being a good person. And I know Julie and you and I have talked about this, that like your reputation matters because you want people to see how you are and how you conduct yourself in a business manner. And you can't go to shows pouting or being upset you're not being used or like having bad things said about you. You need to be easygoing and know your role and accept what's happened. There's many times I've gone and I sat because the females didn't need it, but my friends got used, the guys, because they usually need a male security spot or they used to get matches on TV way more than the females. And that's okay. I never left feeling discouraged. I was just like, I looked at everybody and I was like, okay, I just have to come back and do better. Yeah, I have to look better. I have to, because just in case that spot happens again, you have to be ready. And one of the things where I always say with talent is throughout the years, I hate looking back at pictures, but then you see how much you evolve with gear. I think gear is a really big thing. It is really expensive, but when you watch TV, you need to stand out. You cannot just blend in. So when you're trying to make a statement, or a lot of these people online, I always say like they want the next cool gift to go viral, but you want to look good. Like if I hate speaking of my age because granted, I think I still look young. But when it comes to contract wise on paper, no. So like, it's like, what else being at this age, what else can you bring us? What else does she have on top of it? So it's like, all the time, I'm always like, what can I do different with my gear? I need to stand out. I need to look TV ready. I need to look like a star. I need to stand out from the rest, or at least look like I fit in and not just like you met me at your mall. Like I worked as a store associate and I just come on in wearing like whatever. So I think that's really big. And I always try to tell people like, hey, man, get good gear and go to a reputable school that is going to progress and help you go further because time gets away from you so fast. When I look back and I try not to, at how long I've been doing this, what happened? Like, yes, I had great times, but I mean, like, how did it go by so fast? I didn't think it would be this fast, honestly. No freaking way. Never.
You brought up a couple of good points that sort of lead into one of the questions that had been brewing in my mind because, like I said, you've been in this business for a number of years. You started at a very young age too. You started, like you said, at 16, which is pretty early. And you've had a lot of opportunities. You've got to do extra work for the WWE. You've gotten to wrestle one of their top stars on television. Is there anything that you have in mind that you feel like you can share with us that's still on your bucket list, or maybe somebody that you haven't had the opportunity to wrestle yet who you'd like to maybe put on notice?
It would be Angelina Love.
Oh.
Yeah. Because she's
okay.
still So I remember, so back when I started, there used to be a website called Glory Wrestling. And I didn't know of this site at the time. I probably found out about it like 3 months later, and it was a site of all women's wrestlers. You used to be able to put where you're from. You used to be able to do a sign-in sheet so you can say what towns you're willing to work in if you had licenses. I wish this was a thing now. I don't even know. Maybe there's a Facebook group or something. But yeah, I remember going down the list, and she was Angel Williams, and she had like blonde braids, and I was like, I love her. And she was in Deep South Wrestling, which was a territorial for WWE back in the day. A lot of like I believe it was like what OVW used to be. I think it was like OVW maybe in Deep South. Don't come at me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It was like the NXT, but not the NXT, you know? So I remember seeing her in there, and I was like, man, she's awesome. And then she ended up getting called up to TNA Impact, and I was like, oh my gosh, like she made it. She's so great. And then I know she ended up having a child, and I was like, oh man, is she ever gonna wrestle again? And then I actually got to be on shows with her before that when I lived in Florida for years, and she was really cool, and like we built like I don't want to say a friendship, I don't talk to her all the time, but like respect for each other. So like I would see her at shows, I'd see her when we did customs, I would see her at Lexi Fi's house if she had like a cookout and stuff like that. So I was like, man, I looked up to this woman, and this is again like back in the day, like little old me would be like, oh my god, it's Angel Williams, you know, and it's just like, oh, she's cool. Like, but on my bucket list to wrestle, it would have been, it's still her. And if I could go back, I would say Trish Stratus. Like she's not really wrestling anymore, and I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But yeah, those are my two.
Latasha, I want to ask you, when you nail a woman with that roundhouse kick, or you run across the ring and you splash her on the ropes, what is the satisfactory level of that? Because to me, when I was watching your clips and your highlights and your matches coming into this interview, I'm like, not only are you having a lot of fun, at least from my perspective, but I'm having a lot of fun watching you do it as well.
I'm glad you are, and I'm sure others are, but I don't think my opponent's having the best time at that moment.
Well, I didn't say them. I said the rest of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody else but them. So for me, I love it because, especially the kicks, like I really love my kick in the corner, and I really do love my finisher, because being so short, and I actually got complimented this when I wrestled in New York the other week when I met.
Oh, we lost Latasha for a second. There we go.
Oh,
she's back.
I think the cat knocked you offline for a second.
They're actually behaving right now, which is weird because I'm on Wi-Fi. And I'm like, and I'm at 86%. I'm like, I charged my. But yeah. So what was I saying? When I met a fan last week in New York, she comes up to me and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're really short," and I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You look really tall out there," and I'm like, well, that's good. I'm not, but that's good. So with my kicks, I don't think people are expecting me to have so much height and umph with it. So for me, when I'm able to kick people in the face, it's exciting. So I'm like, yeah, I did that. Don't underestimate me. I got ups. Like I can jump. But yeah, so I do love it. So it feels good.
And to add to what Tony said, I wanted to circle back really quickly to some of your recent matches in the WFA because on top of the technical wrestling ability that you've had, you've also been put into some interesting stipulation matches. You were in a no holds barred match not too long ago. We saw you get hit over the head with a glass bottle. So what is it like being in like the hardcore realm of wrestling?
It's
You
not
gotta
for
be
me.
pretty tough. You gotta be pretty tough to do that.
It's not for me. No, not my style.
But
not
you
my style.
did it. But you
I
did it and you made it look good.
So for me, doing a no holds bar match was different for me. So like I've done a couple of hardcore matches, and throughout the years, like a while ago when I wasn't scared of life, it's a lot. The older you get a little more nervous on things. I'm like, man, I really gotta wake up in the morning. Someone's gotta take care of the cats, because like, I mean, I'm not here. But it's all right. I have a will for them. I know who would take them if something happened. My friend's on standby. So but so yeah, so I just like it's crazy because I wouldn't think I would be put in the matches and building up a story, which is hard on the indies to begin with, because you have to have a fan base and you have to at least come back to the same areas so people know you, and you build like that repertoire of like, all right, I know who she is. Oh, I remember last time she got hit in the face, and now they're building towards this. So like going into the no holds bar match, first off, I got hit in the face first. That wasn't fun. I think my nose is honestly back to normal because it was like swollen. Like I had to Google this because I'm like, what's wrong with my nose? But I guess when you get hit in it, it takes a while for the swelling, like weeks to go down.
WebMD can be scary though. If you WebMD it, that can be a rabbit hole.
I try to be careful on Google. But so yeah, I was like, my nose is still not normal, but I think it looks normal now. It's not as bad. But so yeah, that led into the no holds bar, and it pushed me at my limits because I'm like, man, I don't normally wrestle like this, and I'm like, what can I do? But I mean, overall, I was satisfied with it. I felt great, and then we came back and we did a 2 out of 3 falls match, which again pushes you at another limit. Because then it's like when you're wrestling, you have to tell a story, and people, I think nowadays because of the internet, realize a story needs to be told, so they're a little more appreciative. But because I still have like an older school mentality, which kind of hinders me, but I am aware that you have to change a little bit within times, but again, also know the audience you're working for, because you want them to care what you're doing. Like, don't put me through a flaming table if they aren't really gonna react.
Exactly. Like it's like risk versus reward. Yeah, so it's like you gotta really judge what you're doing and who you're doing it for. Is it cool? Sure. Could I post it on Twitter and probably go viral a little bit? Maybe. But like at the end of the day, is it hitting? Is it giving what we want it to give? At the end of the day, when the 3 count happens, did you tell the story that you were intending to tell? I don't care what I get in or my move wise. I want the fans to be happy so that they come back the next time and be like, hey, I remember her. She did maybe not a lot, but she got her butt kicked and it looked great. And I like her. Like, I want her to keep going. I want her to beat the next girl or whatever. Like, I want to come back and see her get her revenge on Elle. So with that being said, when you put it in a stipulation match, it's like, what can we do that we haven't already done? If we're, to me, make it make sense and build towards the finish, build towards the end. So overall, I think with me and Elle, I'm pretty sure we're done now. Because I've wrestled her so many times. I'm like, what else can we do? Like, well, you guys also had a loser leaves town match as your last stipulation. Exactly. So if she hits a go, yeah, somebody else has to step up. I'm ready for more people. So, but yeah, so it's fun. Like it is. And thankfully I've had small little injuries. I hurt every day. Something always wrong with me. It just comes with the territory. But it's funny. We'll go back to Bianca. I actually have a scar from her hair whip. Yeah, I have a scar and I've tried so hard to get rid of it, and then I just like stopped putting cream on it. But I do have a scar from her hair whip because I started bleeding.
And then I don't know his name. Oh my gosh, it's like Chris Van something maybe. I don't know if he's a podcast guy.
Chris Van Vliet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes. So
Yes. He's the number one guy. Yes.
Yeah, he's
I'm really
friend
bad
of
at
the show.
Yeah.
So he interviewed Bianca, and he mentioned the hair whip, and there was clips put together, and I'm actually in one of those clips taking the hair whip, and I was like, my friend found it, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're in this, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Go me. No. I'm so corny, guys.
I know you mentioned that you bled when you took that hair whip. How painful was that actually?
I had tights on, okay? Like I had the I don't even know, the tights, like the thigh high, whatever they're called, the pantyhose. And she cut through that with her hair.
Oh wow.
And I didn't know because my adrenaline's going, right? I felt the whip and I was like, damn, that hurts, right? And no, because she got my stomach. She didn't cut my stomach open though, but that she got here and then like the tail like came across this way. And so I get to the back and my adrenaline just, and I'm like, oh my God, my leg is burning. And Gabby was right at the curtain or whatever. And she's like, are you good? You good? And then she looks, she's like, where are you bleeding? So apparently I had like blood here and here. And I didn't realize it. And I was like, huh? And it like ripped my pantyhose. And I had blood here. And then this is where like, oh my gosh, I'm telling on myself. I'm such a baby. And
you were bleeding. You were tougher than me or Julie will ever be. Well, definitely tougher than I will ever be. I shouldn't speak for Julie. You're tougher than I will ever be.
Tougher than you. By a long shot.
We'll talk about this in a second. I hate blood. Like I am like not that person. It's disgusting. Like I can't. So I looked down and I was like, oh, it hurts. And she's like, you gotta go clean it. Go to medical. In my head, I'm like, I'm not going to medical because you're like, this girl got hurt. She's not coming back. And you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm not hurt though, but I need something to clean it. And so she's like, you have to get like gauze or whatever. And she's like, we got to clean it out. When I had to take my pants off or my tights down, oh my God, and like clean it, I literally had tears. No exaggeration. Like I'm tearing up thinking about it. Like it hurt so bad. And I was like, don't touch me. Like I was like, I'll do it myself. And I remember when I had to shower and the water was hitting, like
that's painful. Yes.
That just sounds painful. Hearing you tell the story sounds painful.
It's like we know that's gotta hurt, right? From watching it, but I didn't think it'd be like Wolverine, like getting in there, like getting ripped to pieces, right?
Legit. Like I was like, there's no damn way. I legit got cut from this. So like my friend always jokes with me. He's like, you got cut by Bianca Belair. Oh my God. I'm like, stop. But so that was one of my times I bled. And then I actually had a bloody nose wrestling my best friend Amber. And she used to wrestle. Julie, you met her. Yes. So she went to body slam me and she hooked me like a suplex. So the girls in Japan actually body slam like this. She just forgot what she was doing. She wasn't trying to do a Japanese style. She just forgot. And she's like, oh, I'm going to do a suplex. And then she like body slammed me. When she let me down, she went, and that hit my nose. When I came down and her arm just went, bam. And I was like, I sat up and I went like this. And when I say I was covered, I was like, oh my God. Like, oh my God. And she's like, are you okay? And I was like, keep going. And I'm literally panicking in the rain because now it's dripping. It's funny because I actually had a silver shirt on. It looks kind of like this, but it's not. And this was back in like 2007. Yeah, because I was wearing that in like 2007. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to wrestle. My nose hurt so bad. Those are the only 2 times I bled, but like that was my nose wasn't broken, thankfully, but
well, that's something that I think people forget sometimes, and I always give so much props to talent for this because it's like you never know when you're gonna get hurt, when you're gonna start bleeding. You never know when you're gonna get injured during a match, even if it's to a sort of small degree, just, getting a cut or whatever it is. And to be able to carry on and just work through that and keep going. I mean, I've seen some people, we've seen some people on TV that have gotten like fairly major injuries during matches, people that have torn their pectoral muscles during matches and they still manage to finish. So
It's true. Yeah.
I have so much respect for that, being able to do that, because that's tough.
It is tough. So not this Sunday, the Saturday before in New York, I got Luthez on, and the timing was just not there. And then I got hit in the eye and I hit my head and I could not move. It was so bad. Like, I took the air out of the room. And I was just like, and Justin Rando was my ref. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, my eye is going to swell up and I can't move. And in my head, I'm like, this is like what it means to be in like fight mode. And I'm like, you have to get up right now. You have to get up right now. You have to get up right now. Like, I got to keep going. Like, this is, so it was a gauntlet. And this was my second match I had. And I was just like cussing in my head and like saying everything to myself to get myself off the mat. And it felt like an eternity when I watched it. It was about like 40 seconds, but it felt way longer. And that's one of the things where obviously that's not a major injury, but I was so scared because I literally thought I was done. And then I had a mild concussion many years ago also. I got a fly-in forearm to the face. And that was more, I think that one was scarier because I went to open my eyes and I couldn't see anything. It was pitch black. And I'm like, oh my God. And the ref is like, are you okay? And I said, no, I can't see. And I'm blinking. And then I see spots. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what is happening to me right now? And then finally, like, I was able to like roll the girl up and get the pinfall. But like after that, I went into the back and I'm still seeing spots. My vision is still spotty everywhere. And I had to drive home that night. And I didn't go to bed till about 5 o'clock in the morning because I was nervous. I've never had like a concussion or whatever. And I'm pretty sure that was a mild concussion from the symptoms I had. And then I had a really bad headache. And yeah, it gets scary. But you know what's weird, Julie and Tony, is like, I never, after any of those incidences, I never said, why do I still do this? Is it worth it? Like, no. But what I do say is sometimes after when I'm tired, I'm like, man, I'm tired of getting hurt after every match. But like, I'm still going. It's like, I don't know. And people say, how much longer do you have? When my body gives out. Honestly.
Now, Julie knows I'm a big advocate for women's wrestling.
Yes.
And the one thing I would love to see more of is more, especially on the indies, is more, and on mainstream TV as well, too, is more than just one women's match on a show. It seems like it kind of fits. You hit that. Okay, we've got our one women's match. What do you think can be done on the indies and the mainstream so we could have more women's matches? Because whether it's like 3 women at a show, then they put them in a triple threat or a 4-way match, and it's like one match. What do you think can be done to get more women on wrestling shows, period?
So the show that I wrestled, Lish, there was actually 3 women's matches.
Whoa, okay.
There's 3. It was Lish and I, then it was Asana and Nat Castle's her name, and then Gia Miller against Ariel. And I was surprised that there was 3 women matches. Like, honestly, I was like, oh wow, that's a lot. If we're real talk, because I don't like to cut corners, but I when it comes to wrestling, I do censor some stuff just because some stuff just doesn't need to be said. But I'm gonna try to sugarcoat it and not sound as bad. But it's what I'm trying to say is basically money. Money is what comes down to it. Money and talent. We are still looked at too as a novelty in some places, and I get that. Am I offended by it? No. And the reason being is probably because of I started so long ago when there wasn't a lot of women. And I think what really happened is Total Divas aired. A lot of people got into that. And then a lot of people are like, oh, they were models or whatever. I can do this. Like, I want to wrestle. And then they get into it and they take these bookings and they stop going to training. And then they get put on shows when they're not ready because we don't have women. Or we don't have women who are going to be cheap enough to use. Because at the end of the day, being a promoter, your goal is you want fans entertained, right? Excuse me. But you also want to make money. If you're in this for the right reason, right? Like, you're not doing this because you're a money mark and you want your favorite, like, contracted guys from AEW or whatever to come in because you're a fan. There are promoters out there like that, but in the business, we need promoters who are actually wrestling driven, who know the business and not sitting there just trying to meet their favorite wrestler. So when you are working most independents, there's a gate that has to come in with money and you have to be able to pay talent, but you also don't want to be in the negative either. So with the money factor comes into your talent. If you want good talent, you have to pay for that. And everybody nowadays comes a trainer. So when people come to me and they're like, oh, I want to wrestle. I'm like, oh, you can find a school. You definitely can find a school. Doesn't mean it's going to be a good one, but you can at least find, wherever somebody lives, I would say within 2 hours, driving distance, maybe max 3, there's a wrestling school somewhere at this day and age. So you can train, and then when there's a fresh new face, because I see it every day, they start getting bookings places because they're still new and they're not going to ask for a lot. So they'll work some shows, but then your good quality promotions are like, well, I'm not going to use them because I want good talent. But then they also have to think about the money. If you're not selling tickets, and I am okay staying home on a weekend with my cats at this point. The way I look at it, because I've been doing it for so long and I'm not like that bitter veteran by any means, is my health, my safety, and is it going to be worth it for me? Because I need good quality matches to actually send to other promoters. I work with a lot of green girls and I am okay with that. But at the end of the day, I need to be thrown a little bone here and there so I can showcase what I still can do. Yeah, if you watch the match, you can see I'm leading. You can see what I can do. But like sometimes I want to like show out just a little bit too that I still got it and to challenge myself, because it is a challenge to work with green girls. So I've been on shows and they put new girls together and it's a recipe of disaster. Alicia and I had a watch match together and it was not good. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Less is more. So with that being said, Tony, I would love more women matches because we get more opportunity, but I don't want it for the sake of just having an extra women's match. People do need to get their reps in, but they need to get their reps in with somebody who's going to help guide them and make them better, or to be able to show what they can do and progress and give them feedback. We don't have a lot of veteran girls left on the indies, at least up in this area. And I am very nice, and I told the girls this in New York who didn't know me. I am not that person who is going to sit there and critique you. If you want help, I will help you. But I'm not that person that, and I get in trouble for this, being like, hey, next time try to do this or that. You know, like, this is going to look better. And I think it's just because of how I am. But I need to, like, get out of that and be like, this is who you are. Like, help them be better. So
I think one thing that you said, you brought up a really good point, and something that I have been thinking about myself is, I think with, being in New England, there are kind of, at least amongst like Massachusetts, New York, New Hampshire, some of the surrounding states, there's kind of like a pool of talent up here. And then it's like you go down south, there's kind of a pool of talent there. And so as you go to different parts of the country, there's certain people kind of popular in certain areas. And so something that I think is really important and something I want to continue to do more of myself is traveling other places and working other places. And that's always something that I think about whenever I do get the opportunity to go other places or meet people from other places, whether it's down in Florida or even last month when I had the opportunity to do some stuff in Philly for Mania Week. Anytime I meet really good female talent from other places, I'm always saying, oh, we got to get you up here and mix up the talent pool a little bit, and it's good for everybody because as a talent, it gets your name out, it allows you to be seen by a different audience, and it allows you to add something different to your resume. And then for the people that maybe are native to New England, it gives people different opportunities of who to work with too. So that's just something that I, as someone who's also, you know, relatively new to the business and trying to grow myself, I think about, you know, trying to get opportunities in other parts of the country as well, or even other parts of the world for people that have been able to do that. I think it's invaluable experience just being able to go and even just network with people in different places and meet different people, learn different styles, and try to bring more outside names up here and kind of mix things up a little bit.
So I always try to tell people, I think it's okay if talent pays their way to go to certain places, because you want to build up your resume and you want that experience to work with different talent, and you should get something out of it regardless. I think if you're going to a right place, and also networking. I'm not good at networking. I still till today I'm horrible at it. I honestly think I probably would have had a little more opportunities with different things if I approached things differently, but that's just not who I am. And I've seen throughout the years within the business how some people will latch on to others and like grow that way, but it's not, and I mean latch on and not organically, like in a bad way. And we all know it's a bad way. It's not going in the good way where you just happen to be friends. Like, you see the patterns of what people do and you're like, man, they're really smart. Like, it's wrong, but man, it's working in their favor. And or like kissing people's butts, and like, it's not me as a person. So it's like sometimes I tell myself like, Toyo, you should have did this, or you should have asked this, or like I'm really bad with like asking for contact information. I'd rather sit there and like try to find it. So, but when I have something for my friends, and my friends throughout the business can like back me up on it, when I've gotten opportunities, and this is a thing, Julie, that you have to look out for. I mean, and Tony too, if you ever want to wrestle, but in general, it's like with business, there are some people who in work, right? There are some people who will get opportunities and they want it for themselves. And the way I view it, if it's yours, it will be yours. Everybody brings something different to the table. So like, just because I may have somebody's contact and they're asking me to do this, I'm not going to hold it. I'm going to give it to my friends. And I've done that a couple times with writing out, not necessarily a resume, but like an email of like, hey, you should do this spot or whatever. Let me contact them. Like, I'll write the email and then here's the email and you just send it. And it's worked out. And I wish there was more people like that in the business who would lend a hand, because I believe you don't just do something because you want something back in return. You do something because it feels good. So like when my friends got opportunities, I'm like, yeah. And it wasn't like, I got you this time, you get me now. Like, it was never that. I don't need it in return. Just be my friend still. Don't all of a sudden disappear. But a lot of people, it's like you do have to network in the business. And now it's easier with social media. We have podcasts, we have Twitter or X, whatever, and Instagram, and we have so many ways to network than what we used to have. So it makes it easier, but also it makes it a little, if you're not that outgoing person to like reach out to others or be like, let me email all these companies. There's a time, at least probably twice a year, I will literally send emails to promotions, and the worst part is when people do not reply back. That is such a kick in the gut. And I get it. You get a lot of emails and you get flooded, or you're like, oh, get back to that person, or they'll use the next talent that's like hot right then and there. And it is a little discouraging, but you still have to keep going because eventually somebody's going to bite. I got to wrestle in Japan when I was 23 years old. Like,
Oh, wow.
I did not think that was going to happen. And it was one of the easiest things that could have happened. I can't explain like the thought process of it. It happened relatively fast, and I was grateful for that opportunity. It was great. I actually was only supposed to be there for a month, and I stayed for 2 months. The day before I was supposed to fly out, they were leading into a tournament in the summer, and they were like, can you stay for another month? And I'm like, okay, this is clearly a language barrier because I fly out tomorrow. My mom's already able to pick me up. And they're like, no, you stay. And I was like, no, I go home. And they're like, no, you stay 1 month. And I said, I just stayed 1 month. They're like, no, you stay another month. And I'm like, and fight? Like, again? And they're like, yes, stay. And I said, but my flight. And he's like, we changed. And I was like, wait, what? So I ended up losing my job. I was at my job for 5 years, and they got rid of me. But it was a whole thing. It was really bad timing, and I'm okay with that. But I was like, yo, I was with you for 5 years. You thought I just quit? Like, I had emails, like.
But you were in such a unique situation though, being in Japan and having this opportunity, and it's like a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, no regrets on my end. Trust me, no regrets. But yeah, so like with that being said, like I had an email, and I'm like, hey, does anybody want to go to Japan? You can wrestle for this women's company. Like, let's go. And my friend Gabby was the one who actually was going, and she let me know about it. So she's like, here's the email now. And I was like, they're not going to say yes. And sure enough, they did. And I was like, holy crap. Okay. But again, you need people around you who are going to help you and build you up and not bring you down, because it is a slippery slope that people can get on, and it's not nice. But, yeah.
Let me bring up two comments here. Casteller Daniel Garcia says Joe Hendry is the Deadpool of pro wrestling.
I believe in Joe Hendry. That's just me personally. What do you think? What do you think, Luscious?
Okay, so first off, what is Deadpool of pro wrestling? Is that a bad thing?
No, I think it would be a good thing. Like, Deadpool's cool, right? So, like,
I think so.
he can survive. He can keep coming back. Like, he doesn't die.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
He's sarcastic.
My friend loves Joe Hendry, and okay. So Impact's on a day where I teach Zumba. Okay. So when it comes down to trying to watch Impact, I'm not. I'm like showering, cooking, trying to eat, and trying to go to bed, all within like an hour and a half span. So, but I did get to watch the pay-per-view, or Under Siege or whatever, Under the Siege, and I did see him, and I like him. And Julie, I see you always shirt, so I'm assuming that's why this comment is here.
Oh, your mic is muted, Julie, I think.
Have you heard his song that was just released on iTunes last week? Is the big question.
No, I didn't. My phone's always on mute unless it's a cat video, and I turn it off.
I think that might be part of what we're getting at here with the Deadpool of pro wrestling, because he just went from, I think he's like 35, 36 years old. So he's been doing this for a little while, and his song just blew up. I pre-ordered it. I never pre-order things on iTunes. I pre-ordered his song.
So does he sing, or does anybody could just go on iTunes?
It's on iTunes. I don't believe he sings it himself. I do believe he is a musician, though.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know. If it's not from the 90s, I'm not too hip with what's going on nowadays. And then Edwin came in with a super chat. Thank you, Edwin. Says, hi, Julie and Tony. Great interview. Thank you, Edwin, so much for checking out the interview and the support. We do appreciate that.
Always.
Love it. Love it.
Well, Julie, I don't know if you have any more topics that you wanted to touch in with Luscious Latasha here.
Well, one thing I always ask before we close at the show, I ask number one, Luscious, where can we see you performing next? What's next on your schedule? And then where can the people find you on social media?
So what's next on my schedule right now is I have May 24th in Weymouth, Massachusetts, and then May 25th in Weymouth at Barrel House Z. That is Memorial Day weekend, so I'm excited for that. And then oh my gosh, so okay. So quick little story. I promise this will really be quick. Before I started wrestling, I always wanted to wrestle at my high school. And there was a wrestling show at my high school before I was training. And I was like, I remember telling my teachers, like, oh, they have wrestling here. Like, I'm going to end up wrestling here. I'm telling you right now. Because I thought it was going to be an ongoing thing. Then let's fast forward. Yes, Lamar. Let's fast forward to now on May 31st. I actually got to wrestle at my high school. Yay. And it's like the little things, like people are like, okay, so what's the big deal of wrestling at your high school? Unless you're like a wrestler or something, you won't understand because you get to wrestle at all these schools and stuff. But like, that is just the one thing I wanted to do, and I get to do it. So
it's a full circle moment for you.
Yeah, I was so happy. Like when I found out, I was like, I told my friends, and I was like, you guys couldn't believe this! Like finally. So I'm excited for that. That is May 31st. I have a couple shows in June. I had Lucky Pro Wrestling again in June. A couple more shows with WFA. I believe it's there. Thank you. Yes.
At Tackle Box Brewing in Marlborough, Massachusetts.
Yep. And June 29th in Laconia. Yep. Yes, I know, Lamar. We're ending it now.
I got you covered, at least with the WFA stuff. I got you covered with that.
You're very well prepared. Tony's always well prepared.
I appreciate it. And to find me on social media, I'm most active on Instagram, which is Luscious Latasha. And I always say, because people spell luscious wrong all the time, it's Lu with an S, CIOUS Latasha. On Facebook, Luscious Latasha. And on X, Luscious Latasha. I have TikTok too, but you don't want that. That's mainly cat stuff. So
I think there's a lot of people that would want that.
Everything is Luscious Latasha. So.
And Julie, what cool stuff do you have coming up soon?
I have a couple WFA shows.
Yes.
As well. I will be there in Weymouth, Massachusetts on May 24th. In the evening at 6 p.m., we're doing a food truck festival at the town hall. And then our show, Light It Up, is on Saturday, May 25th, also in Weymouth. We have, like you said, a couple shows coming up in June. And then I also have some footage still from WrestleMania week that I was able to film at the 2300 Arena in partnership with the Title Match Network. That should be released, fingers crossed, very soon. So I'll be sharing that as it sort of rolls out on my social media. And you can find me most active on Instagram at the Crown Jewels. Crown is with an E at the end. It's the old English spelling. That's just how we roll.
And as far as here on Tone Entertainment, this week we've got the week off from live shows because we did plenty the past 2 weekends. But you guys talked about networking. So next week, while I was in Philadelphia, New Jersey for the weekend, I met Dino Biello. He is the owner of Atlantic All-Star Wrestling. He had us at the show that night. We did 9 interviews that night. It was awesome. And we're going to bring him on to learn more about his company, the big event that's coming up too. So we're going to show some love to one of the owners up there who showed us love while we were up there during Mania weekend. And we can go, we've already posted it, Julie, but on Tuesday, May 21st, Julie is back here on Tone Entertainment. And we have an awesome guest, third time here, actually fourth time on the channel, Jared Diaz, who I ran into in New Jersey as well too. We did a quick 10-minute interview there, but there's so much to talk to with Jared Diaz about that we have to both bring him on and give him a lot of questions.
He's also wrestled with WFA.
Yeah.
He's been with, oh gosh, he's been everywhere. He has been on AEW multiple times. He just came back not too long ago from a European tour. He's wrestled for CZW. So we will have a lot to ask him about in just a couple of weeks. I will be back for that as well.
Definitely looking forward to it. Well, Luscious Latasha. Luscious. See, I got the chant going.
Yes.
I got the chant going. Like, no, it's not Latasha. No, it's Luscious. Thank you so much for your time. Keep up all the great work, and we wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you guys so much. Hopefully I didn't talk your guys' ear off too much. I talk a lot, but like I said, I have to give you the whole story.
That's the point of the show. That's
right.
what we do here.
And this is since Lamar didn't make a debut. This
Hey.
He's my boy. But thank you guys so much, and thank you guys for tuning in, and keep watching Tony. It was great. It was fun. I had a lot of laughs with you guys, so again, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Julie, thanks again for not only coming on, but also bringing on an awesome guest with you as well.
Thank you so much as always, Tony. Tony, I'm always happy to be here with the Toned In Entertainment Galaxy.
It is the galaxy now. We're expanding. Well, once again, thank you, Luscious Latasha. Thank you to Julie Cutler. And guys, thank you for all of you who chatted with us during the interview and are watching this on demand. And if you haven't already, guys, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you can stay tuned in here to Toned In Entertainment for future videos. Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.